And welcome to another episode of DIY with RK at 021 Tech. Today, we are building this thing from scratch. Boom! To build the circular container, we're going to use several techniques: exploding compounds, part revolution, joining curves, sweeping, drafting, extruding polar arrays, manual chamfering and filleting, Boolean operations, cut and union, and spreadsheet dimension, using the sketcher, part, draft, curves, and spreadsheet workbenches. And 5 main steps. The first creates a compound sketch, where we sketch the profile for the lid, the base, and the teeth for the thread. Next, explode that compound and create revolves with the top and bottom profiles. We'll use the other 2 profiles to create the threads. The part workbench to use those threads to the lid or the base. We'll use the sketcher workbench to create the profile for a single rib, then raft workbench to create a polar array, then use a part workbench to extrude ribs. Finally, we'll put the finishing touches on the object with a manual chamfer. We'll use the sketcher workbench to create the chamfer profile, then we'll use the part workbench to do a revolve and cuts. So if all that seems interesting to you, let's hop right in.
We're going to make the compound sketch. So we're going to switch over to our sketcher workbench, create a new sketch in the XZ plane. And we're just going to create some shapes here with our polyline tool. We're going to create an L shape for the lid. And this is going to be a closed sketch. Okay, we'll deal with constraints later. And we'll do something similar for the base. And then I'm going to just do an angle like this so that my 3D printer can print this without supports. Let's go ahead and constrain, and then we'll deal with our threads. I'm going to get my vertical constraint tool and just make this line vertical, that line vertical, this line vertical, switch over to horizontal, and make anything that looks like it should be horizontal, horizontal. Make sure that the center of our lid is in line with the center of our container, our base container. I'm going to put in a height here. That's going to equal spreadsheet dot total height is what I called it. And click OK. So we're going to take the L, and this is going to equal spreadsheet dot model radius. So you can see this is actually going to pull everything in. I was a little excited with how everything was going to move, I guess. All right, so we're just going to move everything over. Might as well just get this out of the way now. It's a pain in the butt. I didn't think that part through, I suppose. But no worries. Here we are. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to put the exterior of the shape in line as well. Strain the thickness of the lid. So this is going to be vertically constrained to equal spreadsheet dot lid top thickness. It should be 4 millimeters. And I'm going to constrain the lid wall. This is a length, and this is equal to spreadsheet dot lid wall thickness. I'm going to set a threshold between these two. I'm going to set a length first, just to keep it horizontally constrained. This is going to equal spreadsheet dot thread gap. I'm going to create a tolerance. I'm going to put a lid base tolerance in here. I've constrained this also to be equal to spreadsheet dot lid base thickness. This height is going to equal spreadsheet dot lid height. This we're going to constrain to be equal to spreadsheet dot base bottom thickness. Constrain this angle 180 minus the spreadsheet dot point angle threshold. We're going to keep these 2 points horizontally constrained. Put in a width here. I want this to be spreadsheet dot base wall thickness. And this incident. And I'm gonna move these two guys horizontally. There we go. Now we're gonna come in and draw our teeth for the thread. We're gonna do a polyline here. This is the lid profile. So we're just gonna draw a tooth, basically a triangle and a rectangle together. And we're just gonna draw a couple of those. And we're just going to come in and constrain things that look like they're supposed to be vertical, i.e. that, and then things that are supposed to be horizontal, i.e. that. We're going to just set some equality here. All of these are equal. And we're going to set some parallelism. Those are going to be parallel. We're going to set those edges to be equal. And same with the height. So we're going to send this here, set this length equal to spreadsheet rect width. Okay. This one here, we're going to set a distance on this. This is going to equal spreadsheet dot triangle distance. Okay. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to come in here and set an angle between these two to be 60 degrees. Equilateral triangle. Come in here and set this dimension to be equal to spreadsheet dot thread placement. Put a point here on this line. I want to make sure that these things are close, but they're not too close. So we're going to put a vertical constraint between these, and then we're going to put a vertical distance. I'm just going to call that 0.3. This is a manual option here. Create constraint preserving fillets, and we're going to fillet these edges here and this edge here. All right, so we're going to constrain these fillets to be equal, and we're going to make the endpoints of our fillets vertically aligned. So this is going to have a radius of fillet radius. And then you see how this guy lost its dimension. This edge, and this edge are equal. We're in our part workbench. Here's our sketch. We're going to part, going to compound, going to explode compound. We're going to get 4 different profiles. So we're just going to name these to be the profile. So this is going to be the lid profile. The second sketch here, sketch 1, this is going to be our container profile. Our sketch 2 here is going to be the lid thread profile. And then this one here, we're going to call container thread profile. Now we're going to create bodies. For now, I'm going to hide the thread profiles. I don't need those right at the moment. For our lid profile, and I'm going to do Revolve. Profile, you see the directions around the Z axis, and we want to create a solid. So we select OK. And we're going to rename that to be the lid Revolve. And then we're going to do the same thing for, the container. Z-axis, created solid. Okay. So now we've got 2 revolves, and this one is going to be the container revolve.
If you like the video that you're seeing, hit that like button, click the notifications, and subscribe to the channel.
We're going to work on the lid thread. First need to unhide our lid thread profile. Actually, I'm going to also hide my thread revolve. And I just want this tooth first for just a moment here. And I'm going to toggle my axis because I would like to see where my helix is going to go. Go into my part workbench and go to create primitives. And I'm going to select helix, and then we're going to hit create and close. We need to size this thing correctly, And we need to get this guy in line. We're going to come back over to our properties for the helix. And we're just going to come in here and set some ideas. So our pitch is going to be equal to spreadsheet dot helix pitch. Our height is going to equal spreadsheet dot helix height. Our radius is going to be equal to spreadsheet dot helix radius. And now what we need to do is place it into position. So we're going to, we want our Z position equal to spreadsheet dot Z position. And boom, our helix is now roughly in line with our tooth. We're going to create the lead in and lead out. Come back into my Sketcher workbench, select one endpoint of the helix, create a sketch, translate origins, endpoints, and rim point edge. So we're going to come up to this point, and we want this endpoint to be outside the helix profile. As such, we'll just create it like this. Okay, I actually think I want to move it back just a little bit like that. And I'll change my radius to be a little bit straighter. Okay, close. We're going to do the same thing with the other point of the helix. Select it, create a sketch, translate origin, and now we have a point, endpoint, and rim point, arc, coincident with the helix endpoint. Drag outside and make our arc. Select off the tool. I'm just going to position it like that. And you can position it however way you want. I'm just going to close that. Now I'm going to make this a single curve. So I'm going to come into our curves workbench. And in our curves workbench, what we're going to do is we're going to select one sketch, select the helix, select the other sketch, and then we're going to hit join curves. And we're going to use this curve to make the thread. So I'm going to hide these for a moment. So we're going to get our top view here. We're going to come over into our part workbench. We're going to come over to our sweep tool. And what we're going to do is our available profile is going to be the lead thread profile. And you see that our little tooth selected here. Our sweep path is going to be this join curve that we just made. And so we select that, click done. And then we're going to create solid. And now when we hit OK, we should get a thread. Now what we're going to do is take our lid revolve. And now make sure that our threads aren't poking out. The other thing we need to do is inspect to make sure that our surface has closed. So we can see that the end of this has fully submerged into here and it hasn't come through the other side, which is what we're looking for. And then we're going to inspect the other end, and it appears that that is the same to be over here. This rendering is a little misleading, but it appears that that's the case. Hide our join curve. We're going to select our lid revolve. We're going to control click our sweep. We're going to make a union of these two shapes, and we're going to call it lid fusion. Inspect it to make sure the fusion looks the way it should. And we now have a fused lid. Now do it all over again, but with the container thread. We already have the helix, so we're going to reuse this. And we're going to come back to our Sketcher workbench. We're going to select the endpoint. We're going to create a new sketch, and we're going to translate our origin. Do the endpoint and rim point arc. We're going to go inside, and we're going to create our arc similarly. Rotate. We're going to select the other endpoint, create another sketch. We're going to translate our origin, our new origin. We're going to select the endpoint rim point. coincident with the origin. We want the path inside the helix. And I'm just going to do an adjustment a little bit like that. And now come back over to our curves workbench, select one sketch, and select the last sketch, join curves, hide the helix in 2 sketches. Inside of the part workbench, create a sweep. The profile is going to be the container thread profile. Click that over to the selected profiles. We're going to tap on our sweep path, click our sweep path. We're going to click done. We're going to create a solid out of this. So check that box and then click OK. All right, the only other thing we need to do is check our work. I'm going to keep my helix around for a moment, hide my thread profile. Actually, let me hide that join curve. Bring in my container revolve. And now we're going to do the inspection. So what we're going to do is we're going to come into the sketch for that. Sketch here. Bring that out a little like this. And that fixed our issue. Select our container, control click our sweep, and hit union. We're going to rename this to be Container Fusion. All right, so up until this point, we have our model complete. We're going to create ribs around this, and then we're going to chamfer those ribs. We're going to work on our lid first, so I'm going to hide our container. Go to my sketcher workbench, select the top of the lid. We're going to create a sketch on the top of the lid. Create an arc here. And I'm going to create a line that connects the endpoints of the arc. Those are immediately coincident. Perfect. And then I'm going to constrain the radius of this arc to be equal to spreadsheet.rib radius. And then constrain the distance on this line. This is going to be spreadsheet.rib radius. This is actually 2 times, right? Diameter is twice. The center of the circle and the origin, I'm going to make those vertically constrained. Create a distance between those two. A vertical distance equal to spreadsheet.rib distance. Close the sketch, come back down to our top view. We're going to make the ribs. Come into our draft workbench, hide the grid, we don't need the grid. Select the sketch, come over to array, select polar array, reset the point of center of rotation. My number of elements is going to be spreadsheet.numRibs. Update. Click save, come back over to our part workbench, select our array, extrude, reversed along the normal, create a solid, come in and edit our extrude to have a length dependent on spreadsheet.lid height. Now we're going to select our lid fusion, select our extrude, come to our part workbench, select union, rename this to be our rib lid fusion. Now we're going to select the top of the lid, come to our sketching workbench, create a sketch on the plane face, create a circle centered at the origin, and then constrain the radius to equal spreadsheet.model radius, renamed to chamfer path. Next, we're going to create a sketch in the XZ plane. This sketch is going to be a rectangle, and that rectangle is going to be swept along this path. To make life a little easier, hide the rib lid fusion, create a polyline. Turn this into a square by giving it equality. I'm going to create normalcy. We're going to bring in external geometry, namely the sweep path. We're going to make the edge closest to the rim path symmetric about a point on the rim path. And then I'm just going to constrain the length of one of these edges to be, 10 millimeters is fine. Next, we're going to create an angle between the axis and the edge of the box, and this is just going to equal 45 degrees. Now we've got a fully constrained sketch. I'm going to show our ribbed lid fusion. We're going to hide our rib. Again, I'm going to create our sweep with our chamfer square as our selected profile. We're going to select the chamfer sweep path as the path of sweep. We're going to create a solid and select OK. Boom. Next, we're going to show our rib lid fusion again. We're going to select the fusion, control select the sweep, and do a cut. Basically, we're going to do the same thing with the container, but we don't need to create this stuff because we've already created it. We just do a Control C, Control V, copy our sketch. We're going to select this guy. We're going to map it. And we're just going to select this face here, hit OK, refresh, and we now have a map. But we can still see the ribbed lid array. I want to hide that. We're going to extrude. Once again, come over to our part workbench, select that array, select extrude. Use this default because we want to have dependency on the spreadsheet. And then select the extrude, select length equal to, this is going to be spreadsheet.total height minus spreadsheet.lid height minus spreadsheet.lid base tolerance. Perfect. Save that, create a fusion, and we're going to rename that to be, that's going to be container, rib container fusion. Next, we're going to create the chamfered edges. For that, what we're going to do is come back into our ribbed container, and we're going to come into our sweep, and we're going to just copy over these sketches, the chamfer square and the chamfer path. I just want chamfer square, chamfer path. Just make sure that nothing else got selected in here. Okay. And we're going to hide that, and then we're going to paste. And now, notice that these have the 001, 001. We want to make sure that that's the case because sometimes FreeCAD glitches and will attach things that shouldn't be attached. Unhide these, and we're going to change the attachment. So now, this guy here, we're going to change the attachment to the bottom of the container. And if we hide our container, we should see that our guy is moved. Perfect. Now we're just going to chamfer, do exactly what we just did. Come over to our sweep tool, select chamfer square, hide our model real quick, make it easy to select that path. Come to find our sweep path, select circle, select done, back to this. Unhide our guy, create a solid, select done. Want to keep the fusion, want to get rid of the sweep, cut it. Save. Hide our sketches. Rename this guy to be ribbed container. Boom. Just like that, we have a ribbed container. I'm going to create linked copies, and I'm going to hide our original models, and I'm going to be ribbed container link and ribbed lid link. Okay. Reorient our lid. Go to transform. We're going to transform this thing a whole 90 degrees, move it up, and just about in line, and then move it over. Next, we're going to export these. This is going to be the ribbed container. And I'm going to export the lid. Next, come over to our printer.
If you liked this tutorial, click that like button, hit subscribe, and make sure your notifications are turned on so that next time we release a video here at 021 Tech, you'll be the first to know.